Have you seen me dice bag? The Grognard Files.
Hello, my name is Dirt the Dice, and this is the Grognard Files podcast, where we talk bobbins about tabletop RPGs from back in the day and today. I'm coming live from my den here in the heart of the northwest of England. I'm completely and utterly surrounded by my stuff. 2022 has been another bumper year for additions to the great library of RPGs and my Grognard Files, which are stored here on my right. On my left is the ridiculous homemade shrine to the actor Caroline Munro. I'll just give it a tap. Ah yes, it's the annual appearance of the 1984 Santa slasher Don't Open Till Christmas, where the eternal champion sings. It's that point in time when we reflect on the past year in gaming and roll out the red carpet for the GROGGIE Awards. So put on your best tux and put the champagne on chill as we wander through the highlights of the year. Thanks for all your support this year. We've picked up some new Grog Squad members along the way, including JT, who's been catching up with some of the back issues and dropping me recommendations as he does so. And he's very kindly given us a review on Apple Podcasts too, which I'll read here because they often do a better job of explaining the Grog Pod to new listeners than I can. This is a wonderfully warm and funny, insightful pod that's perfect for gamers of a particular vintage and great for more recent converts too. The tone is always gently humorous and warm, with frequent bursts of pure nostalgia mixed in with enthusiasm for newer games. Thanks, JT. Much appreciated. So what to expect from this episode? Well, the resident rules lawyer, Judge Blythe, joins me in the pub. Oh yes, we have our wig on, and we head on a bit of a pub crawl through Horwich, a small railway town in Bolton. We're in a generous mood as we dole out the awards for the best of our gaming experiences of the year, as well as meandering onto other related topics. Listening back to this, as I need to do in the process of editing out the interruptions, banging on the table, and pauses during sudden memory loss, I realise that there's a subtle battle going on between us. We have known each other for a long, long time, but not long enough for me to passively aggressively correct his grammar. See if you can spot the less versus fewer battle going on as a subtext to the early part of this discussion. Also included in this episode is an interview with Bud from Bud's RPG Reviews. In 2022, he released Viral, a modern-day Call of Cthulhu adventure which he co-wrote with Alex Gillott in the Miskatonic repository. One of my favourite aspects of this year has been the continuation of the book club that meets on the first Sunday of every month at 9:30 to 11 a.m. This year, we've invited authors to questions and answer sessions at the end of our discussion. We spoke about Viral in November and Bud kindly agreed to answer our queries. I'll be back at the end to do my normal annual roundup of the new podcasts that I've discovered during the year. Until then, Ramblers, let's get rambling. Welcome to the room of role-playing rambling. We're in the pub. The wig is on. We're in deepest, darkest Horwich for a change. So it's that time of year again where the barman has got a selection of Christmas ales. The Rudolph Brew and things like that.
Yeah, the rubbish beer they can't get rid of any time of year, so they have to call it something Christmassy.
Who wants cinnamon with the beer?
Yeah, don't put cinnamon in beer. Yeah, chocolate pudding beer. Rum and raisin beer. So I saw one rum and raisin beer.
Yeah.
Rum, I'll drink rum. Put it in the beer.
Yeah. Or have an old Jamaican. I like an old Jamaican. So it's time for the Groggies.
Groggies.
When we do a review of the previous year. What's that you've got in front of you, though?
Well, I have a little festive treat for you here.
Oh, yeah.
Because...
Well, this is good.
My wife,
Yeah.
my wife, Mrs. Blyther, got me an advent calendar. She's got me an advent calendar. Last year, she got me a beer advent calendar. Have you ever had a beer advent calendar?
I haven't had a beer. She spoils you.
A beer advent calendar, which is quite nice because you get 24 beers. This year, though, she got me something else. And you can make your own minds up as to whether this is better or worse than a beer advent calendar. She got me a D&D advent calendar.
A D&D?
D&D, Wizards of the Coast advent calendar.
So does that work then? What do you get dice or something?
Well, it's an advent calendar. So every day, we're leading up to Christmas.
I don't know they work.
Yeah, all right. Well, yeah, you get things. At the moment, at the time of recording, accurate at the time of recording, obviously, we're on the 8th of December, aren't we? That's when this is being recorded. So I've only opened 8. So far, they've been fairly small-scale things, like a couple of gifts.
It's building up, isn't it?
I think some of the later ones are a bit chunkier.
Yeah.
I feel they're a bit chunkier, so they might be more exciting. But I've brought a selection in for you now.
All right, there goes. Right,
There's a Displacer Beast sticker.
Oh, right, yeah.
You see, Displacer sticker with the Displacer Beast on. The contradiction in terms. I mean, a sticky Displacer Beast. You're supposed to move, aren't you? It should really be a sticker you can move around, but apparently this Displacer Beast ain't going to displace anywhere.
Stick it on the ball.
There's a Dungeons and Dragons, a little booklet if you need help choosing a class.
Oh, brilliant!
You tell me. You tell me what class you want to play, and I'll tell you whether you should or shouldn't. I mean, it's a bit prescriptive to me, but there you go. Anyway, go on. What do you want to be?
I always like playing the Warlock class.
You want to be a Warlock? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
All right, let's see. It says here, you should be a Warlock if...
Yeah.
And there's 3, but for each class there's about 3 bullet points.
Right.
You should play a Warlock if you'll do favours for anyone for a favour in return, no matter how weird.
Yeah, okay.
You have a vast collection of tarot decks and occult books.
Right, okay.
Finally, you will never do something for nothing. I think it's alluding there, isn't it, to the pacts that
yes, of course.
make, isn't it? There you go. So, there you go. That's what it says.
What about cleric? Come on. Cleric. I fancy being...
You should play a cleric if you are the most boring person on earth. No, that's just my view. That's just my view of clerics, isn't it? Let's have a look. Oh, actually, strange this. It's strange, but you should play a cleric if you have a big, inverted commas, mom. That's mum, isn't it? An American.
Big mum?
Mom. Hang on, let me finish. If you have a big
What's the size of my mother? What's the size of my mother going to do?
Play a cleric if you have a big mum. My mum's not that big. I could just as well. I don't want to play a cleric. Anyway, no, you should play a cleric if you have a big mum friend energy. Mum friend energy in bracket. Mum friend energy.
Big mum friend energy.
Mum friend energy. Have you got mum friend energy?
I don't know.
Clearly have, but you don't know if you have or not. I don't know about that. People.
Hang on, don't move on to the next one.
It says you should play a cleric if you have big, open inverted commas.
Yeah.
I'm going to say mum because it is mum. Mum friend, close inverted commas, energy. You have big mum friend energy.
What, like my mum's friend Barbara? I've got to be like mum.
If you've got Barbara's energy, Barbara is clearly a cleric. She doesn't know it, but she's got cleric. Next time you see her, say, "Hey, Barbara, you're a cleric."
Okay.
Do you want a game with D&D? So yeah, we don't know what that means. No idea. Anyway, and it goes on to say, people would look to you for leadership in a zombie apocalypse.
Really?
People would you look to Barbara for leadership in a zombie apocalypse?
She'd be all right.
I think she'd be okay.
Yeah, it's no nonsense.
Yeah, well, that's what you want, isn't it? Yeah. And finally, you attribute every small happenstance to a higher power. Anyway.
So was that day 1?
Oh no, I think that was day 3.
Yeah.
The next one is a little booklet, and this has caused some consternation in the Blythe household. It's the Dungeons and Dragons Party Challenge, so it's like a little quiz book. My wife asked me some of these questions. I didn't know the answers. She's quite cross with me because she thinks you spent all your money on these role-playing games, and I couldn't answer some of them.
Go on then. Let's say you go on.
Well, the first one. You got this one right. You'll get it. How many sides are on the most famous dice in D&D?
20.
Yeah, of course.
That's 1 point to me.
You think, oh, here we go.
Here we go.
So beginners this. 2. And I couldn't get it. I don't know this.
Go on.
How many eyes does a beholder have?
Isn't it 8?
No, it's 11.
11?
2 points for that.
2
11
points.
11
Right,
eyes.
okay.
Mrs. Blythe got annoyed and she says, why don't you know how many eyes a beholder? She doesn't know what a beholder. She doesn't know what one is. She doesn't know what one is. But she's cross at me because I didn't know. And she bought me this thing because she thinks I'm into D&D and role-playing. I've got a big shelf of books and games which cost a leading fortune. And I don't know how many eyes a beholder's got.
I wonder if I'm not counting the ones... Because it's got the...
You just don't know. Stop making excuses for yourself. You don't know, and I didn't know. You don't bloody know, do you? Finally, we'll just do another. Should we do another one?
Yeah, go on.
See, one of his the yawning portal is in which city? That's Waterdeep, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's kind of he's got that one.
Well, why didn't you give me that one then?
Because I'm doing them in order.
Right.
The next one in order is magic missile.
Yeah.
The magic missile spell belongs to which school of magic?
Oh. Illusion. Did you know that
my wife's not listening to this because you'll be in trouble now too. Even you don't know. Even the Grogfather doesn't know. It's evocation, isn't it? Obviously.
Evocation. Did you know that one?
Is it? No. No, I didn't know. Did I? I didn't know that one. I think I said abjuration. I thought that's a bit obscure. But I don't know. So there you go. That's what I got.
I think I just like the beer one better.
Yeah. Well, obviously.
First thing.
Cause less arguments.
First thing in the morning, dawn breaks.
First thing in the morning, we're another day near Christmas. Open me a little bottle of Open here. Oh, look. The 15th of December. I'm off to work before I go.
Then you'd be like a displacer beast.
Are you sure it's my round?
So this time of year we like to reflect on the games that we're playing during the year and award prizes. Well, not prizes. It's like
Awards.
Awards.
Awards. We like to award awards.
Yeah.
I don't think we've played any less hours of gaming.
No.
Certainly, maybe no more, but I don't think we played less. I think what's been quite noticeable about this year is we've played less systems.
Yeah.
I would say it's the year of the mini campaign. So when I look at my little folders of games I've prepped and played on my computer, there's far less games. There's no less hours, but there are less games. As in, we've played more of the same. So I mean, a great example is Red Markets, isn't it? We played loads of sessions of Red Markets, didn't we?
Yeah.
Played that for a long time, actually.
About 10 sessions, wasn't it?
Yeah. Played it a long time. We played some Aegon, didn't we, for a long time.
Old School Essentials.
We played 7 or 8 sessions of that.
Yeah.
We played 6 or 7 Deadlands, didn't we? You know.
Yeah, and the One Shot Club didn't run this year, did it? So that meant that we were playing fewer different systems, because what we tend to do with that is try out new things, isn't it? Or try and play games that are fitting with the
But one of the reasons it didn't run, we didn't run the one shot, I think, is because we did get overtaken by the campaigns we were doing, didn't we? It left us little time to do the one shots because we were doing so much other stuff.
And it's true, and there's been other things that have encroached on our time. So you're right, we haven't played any less time, really, because we've taken over. There were times like 3 or 4 years ago, if you said to me, "Oh, you'll be playing twice a week," I'd have looked at you askance. But now
and you're playing 4 times a week.
Yeah, pretty regularly. But I think I pushed it too far this year, because there was a point where I tried, as well as doing a Sunday, alternate Wednesdays, some Thursdays.
Yeah.
In fact, I was doing every Wednesday at one point, Saturday mornings alternately. I tried doing a Monday evening, but that was a step too far. I just could not fit them in.
Yeah, and I think we both. I certainly pulled out of one game that we were doing, Pendragon game, because it was a bit too much. There was other things going on at home, and it was a bit. Well, hang on, I don't think I can do every single Wednesday, because we play every other Wednesday anyway.
Yeah.
So I thought, I can't do every Wednesday. I just can't. Even though it was a shortish period, it was a few months, and I thought, I can't really do that. I can't really fit it in.
Perhaps it's because of that feeling that we were playing fewer systems, so but we need to get more in because we're playing the same games over periods. Are we going to fit in more?
Yeah. But then when you add up conventions, so when you add up things like doing a bit of Go Play Manchester or Virtual GROGGIE or Expo or Alba or all these things, you also are doing some one-shot stuff as well. That you're planning for those as well on top of all the campaigns.
Yeah. Definitely.
So definitely year of the campaign, I think, or the mini campaign maybe.
Yeah.
Because we finished Children of Fear, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
To finish the Slipstream campaign.
Yeah, finished Slipstream, which we've been playing for a good couple of years.
Yeah.
Isn't it, really?
Maybe 3 years actually.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah. And we finished also the Mutant Year Zero, the Grey Death campaign. And that was only supposed to be 10 sessions, but it ended up being quite a few more, didn't it? It was
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years of a job.
Yeah. And started Pirates of Drunax as well, which is probably the rest of my natural life, running that, and everyone else's, you know.
Yeah. No, that's good, that, isn't it? That we actually finish things.
It was very satisfying, I think, finishing Children of Fear and Slipstream, both of them, because they were big campaigns we've been playing a long time.
Yeah.
It was good to actually finish them and think, wow, yeah, there you go, I've finished that. Played that character for a long time, and the character I've played is a memorable character in my gaming history, and finished a campaign all the way through.
Children of Fear was a strange one because I think I mentioned before, because we're playing it monthly, it's quite difficult to maintain the momentum of it.
Yeah.
And we did have a break between the penultimate event and leading into the climax. And I do think that the actual cataclysmic penultimate event was more a bit of an anticlimax, the actual spellcasting at the end of Children of Fear. For me, anyway.
I don't know. I think, no, I didn't feel like that as a player.
Yeah.
I think there's always that kind of strange disconnect between how players perceive it and how games masters perceive it. That is a
particularly
common
climaxes, isn't it, for pre-written scenarios, because very often you are anticipating the finale months ahead of the players.
You're anticipating it long before the players, and the players, it's revealed to the players in the moment, isn't it? But as a games master, you've run it through your head a million times because you think, I've got to make this good, I've got to make this exciting. And it is exciting for the players. I thought it was great, the climax of Children of Fear. It was really good. But it, you'll have run it through your head so many times, won't you? Whereas we just experience it once.
I think it's because in that penultimate encounter, I don't want to give too much away, but it involves it's kind of horrific, carnal, strange, hallucinogenic encounter that kind of stays with you, I think.
Yeah, it's a strange campaign. I enjoyed it, and it is very different from other campaigns. There's bits in it that are peculiar, and it doesn't feel. It is like Cthulhu, but it's not very Cthulhu.
No.
I think, as you commented before, there's a sense in it where you can't quite metagame it. You can't quite go, oh yeah, it's the deep ones. Oh, it's this or it's that, because it doesn't really play out like that.
No.
Which makes it interesting. And some of the culture clash, it does the culture clash thing very well, where you do feel like you're in a foreign country, in a foreign land, trying to interact with people in a way that doesn't quite work. And I enjoyed the fact me and Mark played British.
Yes.
Not unpleasant, but sort of British Empire types, which is quite good fun, because that culture clash is brought to the fore, isn't it? A bit more, because you are playing British people who are suddenly in the Himalayas meeting people who aren't British and have different ways and different cultures. That was really, really good fun.
And I think it is one of those campaigns where there's a great deal of satisfaction as a games master reading it and immersing yourself in the world and the history and some of the cultural details that are given. But when you come to the table, it's one of those of, right, how do I convey this to the players in a way that just doesn't drown them in information. And I think we had some really satisfying individual scenarios, which I enjoyed, but I think overall, when it finished, I felt like I hadn't done it properly.
I know what you mean. As you play it as a player, you do get a sense of there's a lot more in this. There's a lot more background and a lot more detail than I'm really getting.
Yeah.
But equally, would I appreciate all that detail, or would I find it boring?
Yeah.
There's a tipping point with anything like that where, do I want to, not that this is in it, but do I want to spend the whole session doing the Nepalese tea ceremony or something like that in all its accuracy? Or would I just think, well, I'm doing this, I want to fight some monsters or do some, do some
things,
Cthulhu type stuff. There's a fine line, I think.
I think Chris Lawson, who did a post-it note featuring his Games Master's Guide, he has one that says lower equals snore. I think there's something in that.
Yeah. But it's true of all those kind of campaigns. I mean, I've started running Pirates of Drinax, and Pirates of Drinax is great. It's a great campaign, but there's a lot in it.
Yeah.
There's a lot in it, and there's a lot that's optional. So as a games master, you have to navigate your way through it, and the temptation is to throw loads of stuff at players.
Yes.
Because already we've been playing about 4 or 5 sessions.
Yeah.
And you've already had a lot thrown at you.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on, isn't there?
Yeah.
And there's more that could go on.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to, because there's lots of options. But there is that sense of, well, if I throw more stuff at you that I think's interesting, is it going to overwhelm you a bit and overload you?
I think the difference is, though, with that Pirates of Drinax, there is a lot of information that you've told us, but it does feel like we're free agents within it and have influence over it, rather than it happening around us.
Oh yeah, it's definitely like it is a very, very pure kind of sandbox, And it makes it a bit sometimes a bit nerve-wracking to run, because you think, what are they going to do? I don't know what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Give me a clue what you're going to do next. There's so many options,
And in that group on a Saturday morning, I know from playing Mutant Year Zero, we do like to mix it up a bit.
And do stuff. Yeah, which
stuff.
is great. It's great. But yeah. But there is that problem of overload.
That said, I mean, within an hour of playing, there was a spreadsheet set up with all the. It's not just a spreadsheet. I'm not gone in it. Don't tell them, but I've not gone in it.
It's funny in Pirates of Drinax. It says that obviously the plot is you're these privateers working for King Oleb, so you've got to keep a track of how much money you get, how much treasure you get, what you do with the money to get influence in Trojan Reach and all that. So, and it says, as advice to the games master, it says something along the lines of, don't worry about the players keeping track of the money, because there's always one player who will love doing it.
Yeah.
We know who that is, don't we? Andy Hemmings. We know who that is.
Yeah.
It's quite funny, because I read that and thought, will there be someone who will want to do all that?
Yeah.
Oh, there is. You're right, there is. There's one. Yeah, good. Which is exactly what you need.
It was worrying about the payroll last week.
The payroll,
What are you bringing on the payroll for?
But it's legitimate. You have to pay these. You've got a couple of Space Marines and a medic. You've got to pay them. They're not doing it for free, are they?
DD Mild.
So the first one we normally go for is the Messianic Megalomaniac, the Games Master Award.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think I won for 5 years in a row.
You're the Anton Deck, aren't you? You're like Anton Deck at the British TV Awards or whatever it is. You all twin. Largely because only 2 of us vote and you have the casting vote.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Doesn't really work as a format, this, does it?
Not really, no, that one doesn't. And it goes to what, a games master with a messianic megalomaniac
No. I guess these all things are contrivances, aren't they, for us to talk about particular aspects of games. So don't think about it too much. It's just this bit is for.
You say don't think about it. You generally tell me to think about it. Quite cross if I'm not.
This one's about games masters, so the games master, and particular games mastering styles and things that you've enjoyed. Can I put mine forward?
You put yours forward, because I think I know what you're going to say, but go on.
Oh, right.
No.
I'm going to nominate Steve Ray, or Rex. His game is Vexed, isn't he? Gaming Vexed.
Yes.
Because he ran Red Markets for us this year, and took us through, as we said, quite long sessions, weren't they?
They were long sessions.
They were long sessions over a long period of time.
They were long sessions over a long period of time with a game system that, in the end, I think we grew to like, with the exception of Sam, didn't. But, one player in particular didn't like it. But we grew to like it. And that's in no small part due to Steve's perseverance with it. That he just kept going, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
He just kept going. The first rule of games mastering, keep going.
Barrel on.
Yeah, thinking about it, I would agree. Actually. I think I'd agree, because it was quite an achievement, wasn't it, that he kept going. He kept going through it, because it is quite an unusual game.
Yeah.
The system's unusual. The whole concept behind it's not unusual, a zombie apocalypse, but it's wrong to say it's as simple as a zombie apocalypse. It's not quite as simple as that, is it? There's more going on.
No.
It is, I think we might have said, it's a game that critiques capitalism, doesn't it? It's a role-playing game, a zombie apocalypse, but it critiques capitalism.
Yeah, in a very simplistic way.
It's a hard sell, that, isn't it?
Yeah. It does it in quite a simplistic way, but it is quite novel as well, the way that it does it. And we've spoken about it at length on Orlanth Rex's Gaming Vexes podcast. But I just wanted to point out the games mastering, because it wasn't just a case of barrelling on.
No.
I think Steve's quality, and I've said this to him, is that he does adhere to the rules, although he's willing to waive them if it's getting a bit too much. But I think he made a point in this to make sure that we were really kicking the tyres of the different rules, particularly in negotiation. Because he could have hand waved that, but it's a fundamental part of playing the game. And even though the players were saying, why are we doing this? What are we getting out of this? But that is part of the struggle, isn't it? The struggle is that you've got to try and influence and use all the things at your disposal to break even ahead of doing the job. And so I think that's where the games mastering skill came out. Really,
I would agree, because I think Steve is a combination of he's an inventive and engaging games master, but he has a keen interest in the rules and how they play out within the game. So he's not frightened to stop and go, hang on, let's find out exactly how that works.
Yeah.
And you're more guilty of it than me, but we're both guilty of, in the midst of a game, think, oh God, I don't know how that works. Let's just barrel on. Maybe it's not barreling on. Maybe it's not actually barreling on, is it? We barrel on. But what Steve will do is he'll stop and go, just give me a minute. Let me just look that up. And that is kind of worthwhile. It's sometimes worthwhile to stop in a game and look at the rule and see how that actually plays out in the game, because that is the game you're playing, isn't it? So as you say with Red Markets, there were things in it that I thought I'd hand wave some of this, but he didn't, because he was interested in seeing how it works within the game.
And even if there was a rule or something within the rule book that did describe it, and if there wasn't, he'd say, well, they don't tell you how to do that, so let's do a ruling on it. Whereas I think you're right, I'm quick to jump to a ruling, because that's the orthodoxy, isn't it? The rule of cool, whatever's happening at the table, just
go with it. Don't interrupt the flow and all that. But sometimes it's good to interrupt the flow, and it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Given that when we first started playing Red Markets, we were all a little bit puzzled by it, and there's a lot of head scratching. And we were all, it's fair to say, we were all thinking, maybe even Steve himself, thinking, I'm not sure about this.
Yeah.
But it begs the question whether Steve engaging with the rules and bringing the rules into it made it better.
Yes. Yeah.
If he'd hand waved loads of stuff, would we have a different view of it? But
I think we definitely would, because you would say, why are we doing this with this system, which is clearly hard work? Whereas, as you've said previously, once you get your head around the system, you realise that it's fundamental to the game, that it reveals itself. Tactically, it reveals, as you get familiar with dealing with the things that you have to deal with, you realise, this is how you overcome it. But you've got to learn by trial and error, just as you would in those situations. It emulates that kind of feeling of you're in a desperate situation. People are not familiar with it because it's still happening, it's still breaking out, and you're learning to deal with it. So that's my nomination.
Well, I think I'd agree with that, actually, because I'm trying to think about impeccable games mastering experiences. I'm not sure.
You have played some games with me this...
Oh, I have, but I can't nominate you. I might. Should I nominate you? You nominate yourself. Should I nominate myself?
You should nominate yourself.
Nominate myself.
Because you criticised me one year for doing that, so I think you should...
You're going to make me do that? Oh, I nominate Steve as well. So
it's unanimous then, isn't it?
So it's Steve. I have to say, let's not forget all the people who've run games for us. You've all done very, very well.
Yeah.
And you're all winners.
Young Mr. Grace.
You're very, very well, Mr. Grace says. But you're all winners. You're all winners. But Steve's the winner. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, that's what we're saying. Well done.
Rex, you are the winner. Well done.
Book Club!
Welcome to the Book Club, where we've got YouTuber and reviewer extraordinaire Bud from Bud's RPG Reviews. Hello there, Bud.
Good morning.
It's good to see your face. We were just speculating whether you were just going to show us your hands for this.
I did think about it.
Where do those hands broadcast from?
This desk here is in my dining room.
And from your accent, that must be located somewhere near the River Mersey.
It's about a 10-minute walk from the beach. It's an industrial beach, but it is a beach.
So for people who don't know your YouTube channel, how would you describe it?
It's just normally me and my hands. I mean, the initial idea was to show the hands because I was scared to show my face, which, to be fair, for the most part is still the case. But it's kind of grown into just a thing now, so I just keep on doing it. I initially started off with, I think it was Delta Green was the first book I did, and it just kind of went from there. And I think I got the most kind of hits when I did RuneQuest 2nd edition. I got a huge following especially on Twitter, with people, who were fans of RuneQuest, and it's just kind of gone from there. To be honest, I mean, the initial reviews were like 8 minutes long, and now like I do like 8-part series on things, and it's more deep divey now than it is just a quick kind of overview. So,
what's your current subscriber count at? Because this is going to be relevant to the discussion later.
Just 7,000 or something.
Right, so it's built up quite a bit then, hasn't it? Yeah,
especially over the lockdown.
And as well as doing reviews, you do the Illumination series as well.
When I got into RuneQuest, a friend of mine, Mark, he's like an encyclopedia of RuneQuest. He once explained how Illumination worked to me. And I remember saying to him at the time, if you hadn't explained that to me, I would never have got that. And it just got me thinking, there are so many things which just need someone to just talk about how they work for people to wrap their head around it. I did the Delta Green series on things like willpower works, how combat works, how hypergeometry works. And then from there, I thought RuneQuest is really prime for that, because there's so many things in RuneQuest which really do need an explanation because they differ so greatly from other settings. In RuneQuest genuinely is like kind of a world unto itself. And so I started with the Lightbringers, and I've done since then the Red Goddess, and I've done Illumination. And the Illumination one was probably the most difficult so far. I'm planning others. I'm going to do one on the Trolls of Glorantha. And I'm thinking of doing one on Hero Questing, because then again, I think it's something people can't wrap their head around. And it's hard to wrap your head around it. I mean, RuneQuest isn't easy. I mean, with pinging you on Twitter saying, look at this, I've just been sent, and it was a message someone sent me saying, it's your videos and the GROGGIE files that's got me back into playing RuneQuest again. And that is immensely rewarding, to be honest. The one I get the most is Delta Green, because obviously I've done lots of Delta Green videos.
I have to ask you, what is it about Delta Green that you find so attractive? Because I know that's one of your key games.
I like a modern setting, which is immediately obvious in Viral. When I remember reading the first Delta Green book back in the day and thinking it was the greatest role-playing book I'd ever read, because it was written in such a plausible manner. The whole idea of America betraying the world in order to get technology, the Greys being puppets of the Migo and things. It just really all kind of clicked for me. And also in the original Delta Green, there's lots of great characters and there's great groups like the Karatechia. Dennis the Twiller once sent a thing out where someone had done like a kind of video on YouTube about a hidden Nazi group of sorcerers, and it was they thought the Karatechia were real. They actually put this whole video together about the evidence for the Karatechia, and Dennis the Twiller was like, I invented them, they're not real. But it was written in such a plausible manner, apart from the kind of eating babies.
So it's a combination of the writing and the fact that it's in a modern setting. Presumably you played Cthulhu in the 20s. How does it differ?
Delta Green, you're part of a covert organisation. Generally in Call of Cthulhu, you're academics. That's the biggest thing, how it differs. It's the secrecy aspect of Delta Green, which I enjoy, the kind of espionage-esque side of it. Although I'm not generally a fan of espionage kind of games, I think Delta Green does it right by mixing it with and the whole point, you're kind of Men in Black as well, where your whole point of what you're doing is to protect the public and make sure these things stay hidden.
And I think it's the first game that I played where you had an awareness that your character had a background that you could tap into, and that was important. So some of the things that you'd experienced was off screen.
Well, I mean, that's very much a thing in Delta Green as well. You have the whole idea of bonds, which it's your life outside of Delta Green, and you can come to lean on your bonds to keep it together in stressful situations. But by doing so, you damage those bonds, because, you think of people returning from Vietnam. It was the idea of going back home to see their families again, which kept them going. But when they arrived back home, they couldn't let go. They couldn't live a normal life again. And I think Delta Green leans heavily on that, which is something I enjoy.
In the book club today, we've been looking at Viral, which has got a subtitle of a modern Call of Cthulhu scenario. How did you start with this?
Okay, it was originally a scenario I wrote for Liminal for Virtual Grog Meet 2020. A guilty pleasure of mine is ghost hunting shows, as much for the laughs as anything else. I put together the idea of tying it in with Liminal, and it was meant to be a pre-Liminal scenario, as in the original version of Viral, you're not aware of the supernatural. Well, as much as a group of ghost hunters can be aware of the supernatural, you're not of the real supernatural world that exists within the world of Liminal. You will go into this haunted island, which was meant to be haunted by the ghost of a woman who'd killed herself after a child had died. And what's happening in the background, it was in the world of Liminal, a fae was bound to the island, which I picked on was a Scottish one called a Gilly Do, I think it was. And I'd been driven mad by being bound to the island, and that was causing all the ghost activity. And at the end of the scenario, when eventually, everything kicks off, the guy who ferried you over there, the local kind of sheriff of this little town, reveals himself to be a member of part of one of the organizations of Liminal, and like, now you're invited kind of thing. And there's the idea of it gets you into Liminal. So cut away from that, I've been running Impossible Landscapes for Delta Green, the big campaign. One of my players, Alex Galot, who has been a patron of mine for a number of years, and he's played in Liminal before with me. And I invited Alex along because I thought it might be something he enjoyed, being quite a prolific Cthulhu writer. And he was very much like, yeah, that sounds great. So we've been playing this for months now. I just happened to mention this scenario idea I had for a group of ghost hunters getting in above their heads. And he just said to me, that sounds like it could be a good Miskatonic repository scenario, that. Do you fancy doing it? And then I haven't seen Alex's other work and how good it is. I was very much on board with that. I said, yeah, I'd love to. And it just kind of went from there. And we did multiple rewrites of it, chained lots throughout the course of it. We ran it, I ran it 6 times, he ran it 3 times. So it had a good amount of play testing. And eventually we released it in April. And that's a kind of potted history of how we got to where we are now.
So for people who are not aware of the plot, you've mentioned that it's because it's based in ghost hunting and ghost hunting videos. So tell us a bit about the Spectral Crew and what happens.
Right, the Spectral Crew, the gang, are based for the most part on people I know.
Really?
There's apart from Marco, who's the main guy, who's a complete narcissist who always follows the money. He's based on multiple people from various ghost hunting shows. He's like an amalgamation of what they're all like if you were to kind of distill them down. But the psychic they have is based on a girl I used to go out with who used to claim she could see auras. They've got a big burly guy called Enoch who's a former Amish who left during the Rumspringa and never came back. He's based on the drummer in the band they used to be in because he was like a bear of a man with a big beard. One of the guys on the crew is a guy called Peter. He's essentially a saboteur. He sets up evidence. And we needed someone who was going to be technically minded and be somebody who was willing to debunk and willing to call out for the evidence for not really being evidence. So that's we created Hyun for that purpose, being a tech guy and being the guy who was willing to stand up essentially to Marco, the main guy. Yeah, so that's the crew in a nutshell. But there's in the scenario as well, there's a super fan, a girl called Emily. And there's various ways you can bring Emily into the scenario, as in, if you need an extra player, she could be someone who won a competition to go along with them. But also, there's the idea that she could be part of a rival ghost hunting group. And there's also the idea that she's discovered where they are and went there herself and is now on the island when they arrive. There's plenty of kind of ways of getting this extra character in. So yeah, that's it. That's the crew in a nutshell. But there's obviously more to them than that. They've all got things going on in the background.
There might be spoilers here. There might be spoilers. I will put a note at the point when spoilers occur.
Okay.
There's quite a lot of information front-loaded, isn't it, in the characters? And I guess you play tested it. It depends, doesn't it, on that group dynamic. And most of the flavour and enjoyment of this game comes through the interaction with the players.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Also, there's this incentive, isn't there, for the crew as they go onto the island to build up the subscriptions because it's got this live monitor and there's a time imperative as well. So how does that play out in the game when you're running it?
It plays out through the interaction with the audience, because what we found was during running, Ed, the person who played Marco, would do anything to try and get the subscriber count or the money. And it didn't matter who played him. No one was careful with him. No one said no to anything that was pushed in their direction. The way I did it, and the way I did it multiple times, and the way it evolved was to use the audience as a way of driving. Because the whole point of Marco is he follows the money. He wants to be rich and famous, and he doesn't care who he has to sacrifice to do it. And so he like there's the lemon grove, and there's all the weird lemons growing off the trees. The amount of fun we had with that during playtesting, getting people to eat them, and they're all full of flies, and there's all sorts of horrible things, but they would just do it. There was no kind of care for the character whatsoever. I think it'd be a bit different if it was characters you play for a long time. I think it's more if it's characters that as Paul Mitchell once said to me, he said, you ride a character from a convention or from a short game like a stolen car. You just do what you want with it. I think more care would be taken if they belong to the same character.
You give the alternative, don't you, to run this over a series of sessions or as a one shot. How do you think it works best, and what's your experience of playing it?
It's better over 3 sessions, because I ran it as a one shot at GROGGIES last year, which Paul Fricker played in. it worked, but it was kind of like if you hadn't read a really good book, but then watched an abridged version of the movie. They got an abridged version of it, which although worked well, you're not getting the full experience. The whole point is, when we released the original version, it was a 2-session scenario. But as me and Alex talked more about it, I was very much of the mind we should have done something before it to set the scene. And that's why I said we came to the agreement that if we got to print, we would do the unredacted version, which would add the setting the scene, but at the beginning, the whole one night in Perla in the local town, which while by itself is not it's not harmful. It's not meant to be something that destroys the sanity of the players. It's definitely meant to set the creepiness level at a certain volume.
Yeah, it kind of foreshadows, doesn't it, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
But in a quite subtle way compared with the intensity of being on the island.
Well, yeah, because it kind of goes like a curve like that, doesn't it? The adventure, it's quite mellow. Things occasionally will pop and crackle, but then eventually, when you get to the big pit at the end, it just goes off the scale and turns full, being chased by a giant monster.
I want to talk about that giant monster as well. It's got quite a few features, because that's always a challenge, isn't it, with these Cthulhu games, coming up with an interesting antagonist. So just talk about the design of that.
Well, I know I'm going to pronounce the name wrong, because when we were at UK Games Expo this year, Mike Mason pronounced Hastalik completely different to how we pronounced it. And I still don't know how it's pronounced. The idea was, because obviously the title is viral and it has multiple meanings throughout the scenario. The idea of them going viral is a different thing to them becoming viral. So the monster is a viral entity that passes through disease. Yeah. So it plays on that one title. It was something I had very solid in my mind, because Alex basically went through the Malleus Monstrorum, and he found this little entity called Hastalik, which had like 3 paragraphs or something like that, 4 paragraphs written about it. And Alex came back to me and said, that's going to be something nobody knows about, hardly anyone has ever heard of, and yet it's perfect for what we want it for. So I was very much like, the idea is like, have you ever seen a viral bacteriophage? A real one? Mm-hmm. They look like something alien. They're horrific looking. And I said, now imagine one of them 50 foot tall, pulsing with cysts and have like a halo of flies around its head, and you've got yourself a kind of a mythos entity, haven't you? And so that was the whole point of it. It was the idea is that the monks have been building to this day, where eventually it will be birthed, and having grown from this microscopic entity to this colossal bacteriophage-esque creature, because it's going to take the form of disease, which is what a bacteriophage is. It's a viral thing that spreads the disease. And when Seth did his review of it, there were a lot of comments saying the use of making it a giant bacteriophage is inspired, because it really suits it. And I was like, yeah, I think we got that one right. That kind of the idea of making Hastalik this monstrous real world kind of thing, which you think you see a bacteriophage, they look alien, but they're not. They're what past things like COVID.
I think I made the point in the book club that I quite like that it can affect the environment so much, and the fact that you've got flies always make things a little bit more horrific.
Well, also the flies are utilitarian, aren't they? Because at the end they pass into the Wi-Fi repeaters and spread it through the internet. The flies are not meant to be necessarily the essence of Hastalik, rather than just simple flies. And the fact that it has a halo of flies, it's like a profane what saints have above their heads kind of thing, and it uses them to attack as well. And the book Define has a big fly on the cover, because obviously flies are known as the spreaders of diseases. I've
heard that there's a sequel in the offing. Is that right? So how will that work? And what can we expect?
I'm not going to tell you how that'll work because I want to play test it first. There'll probably be another play testers sat here now. We are doing a sequel to it called Quarantine, but we've got another scenario we're doing in between, which is a standalone thing called Inversion. Again, it's Cthulhu Modern, because it's Cthulhu Modern is something I feel strongly about. People say you can't do horror. I was like, you ever watched an episode of Black Mirror? Cthulhu Modern is way scarier than kind of old horror, as far as I'm concerned. Because with modern horror, it preys upon the things you take for granted. You know, the idea I can Google it. Well, what if what's answering you is not Google? Yeah, we do have plans for a sequel, and me and Alex have discussed it, and we have got a few ideas for it. And we wrote the sequel into the ending of the unredacted version.
Thanks, Bud, from all of us here at the Book Club. And what's good for me to hear is that this has been developed in the GROGGIE space, both virtual GROGGIE and at GROGGIE Live. So that's good to hear. And I'm looking forward to the sequel. But I do think you should put Derek Okora and Yvette Fielding in as a cameo.
Well, Derek Okora's dead. He died about 2 years ago, didn't he?
Yeah. Is he, though? Is he?
Well, that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Bud.
Right. See you later, guys.
So we've moved on a bit. We're in a different pub. We're in the oldie Jolly Crofters. We've moved on. This used to be my local. This I used to come to the quiz here.
Ye oldie Jolly Crofters, yeah. As opposed to the new one.
And we've just missed Macca because they're playing Christmas songs in here.
Yeah, there's been a few Christmas songs, haven't there?
I mentioned Macca because for me this year it's been the year of the Beatles as well.
Oh, yeah.
As well as gaming, I have set myself a challenge to read a book, a different Beatles book every month. So I've read 12 Beatles books. I was kind of obsessed because of Get Back. You know when Get Back came out? Back end of last year.
Yeah.
And I watched it. You genuinely saw the Beatles like you never saw them before.
Yeah, it was odd, wasn't it? Because you saw them kind of relaxed. There was a point where they were just themselves, which was interesting to see. Like a kind of weird experiment, wasn't it? The cameras are on, but there'll come a point, like an early version of Big Brother with the Beatles, where eventually, within about 20 minutes of the cameras rolling, they forget the cameras are there and just act like they normally do.
I think as well it's about a whole set of assumptions that people have made about who they were at that point and the relationship between them at that point. And it kind of exposed all of that as it was wrong. Everybody's assumptions about it, how they were fighting with each other and couldn't work together. And everything, the history of the Beatles needs to be rewritten. And I think that was part of the drive to read that stuff again, to reacquaint myself with what were the story, what was Hunter Davis's story, what was Philip Norman's version of events, and to revisit them. It's always
a questionable thing, though, isn't it, when people talk about bands fighting? Because you do wonder, is it possible to create good music if you are genuinely fighting all the time within that process? That seems like counterproductive, doesn't it? So you always wonder whether these things are a little bit overhyped in terms of the degree of animosity that exists at the time of recording music.
And you could see, I mean, there's one story that, you know, even when they were at the height of the arguments in 69, McCartney joined Lennon to record the ballad of Johnny Yoko. Yeah. Which is always says it's a Beatles song, but it isn't. It was just John Lennon and Paul McCartney working together. And when you see them working together on that Get Back documentary, you can see that they're looking at each other and they're just drawing from each other, creative energy. It's amazing. And what I find fascinating is that there are a whole lot of people that have died who were Beatles enthusiasts who have never seen that.
Yeah.
Will have only known the
version. It's strange that it's existed for so long without really being released. When you look at it, you think a kind of gold mine of, I don't know what you'd call it, gold mine of kind of like not cinema, like documentary making, or just real life documentary of these people who are like strangely, they're like icons, aren't they? They have a strange quality to them. The Beatles, it's the Beatles, isn't it? You know, there's something odd about them. They're not like normal humans, are they? You don't view them that way. Paul McCartney walks in the room, you'd think, oh God, it's Paul McCartney. It's a Beatle, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know. But there it is, and it's not. It's only now that it's kind of really surfaced.
Yeah.
It's strange, isn't it?
Incredible. Anyway, and talking about really strange people.
Yeah, stop shoehorning your obsessions into a gaming podcast. All right.
Yeah.
No one cares about the Beatles. People probably don't even know who they are.
Let's
The Who?
No, the Who.
Not the Who. They're another band.
That's another one. Let's look at the next award, and that is for the Olive Kinsberg players and people that we play with. It's just talking about games, really. This one.
It's all talking about games.
Yeah, just picking out one that
players.
Yeah, was particularly good at playing experience, I think.
Yes, as a player.
As a player.
Yeah. Well, go on. You can start. What's your experience as a player?
I've, we've got to a point now, haven't we, where we're quite familiar with the people that we play with. That's been one of the great things about creating a community, is getting familiar with people and getting to know them and playing with them on a regular basis, whether that's at conventions or when you've got our regular groups. But I did play with the good friends of Jackson Alliance's Weekend with a Good Friends online gaming convention earlier in the year, and I played Gangbusters, and it was really good because there were different players, people who I'd never played with previously, and it was just good to connect with people out of our normal Venn diagram.
There's sometimes it shakes it up a bit because I know what you mean. We develop like familiar groups that play in familiar ways, which is great actually, because it makes the whole experience much more enjoyable. But it's good sometimes to just shake it up a bit and find yourself. It's high risk, isn't it? Because when we talked about Expo, the Wild West thing of I don't know who I'm going to get here. This could all go very badly wrong. It does sometimes, doesn't it? But the flip side to that is it can go very, very well, and that it kind of energises the game a little bit.
Yeah. So when we in February played Death on the Docks, which is Gangbusters campaign that I managed to get into a couple of hours somehow. I don't know how to do it, but I somehow managed to do
Condense
it and start at the...
You can go with... I think... Do you know what? This is like a digression here, but I think you can with... particularly with old school scenarios, because with old school stuff that is genuinely old school, not pretending to be old school, but genuinely from the past, you do realise sometimes there's a lot of superfluous stuff you can hack out.
Yeah.
You know, modern scenarios are a bit more, they pack more in. They're more conscious of making it interesting. But those old school scenarios, there are bits of it where you think, there's loads of superfluous guff here I could just hack out. You know, I don't have to really play through some of this, you know.
And not only that, if you can use things like flashbacks and
exactly.
You can cover a lot
more modern techniques to speed it up a bit.
To deliver it.
You can.
But it's not that playing experience at the beginning of the year that I'm going to turn to. I did it again. I did the Good Friends of Jackson Alliance's convention, and the people came back. The people came back that I played with.
You must be doing it right.
It must be doing it right.
You must be doing it right.
And we played Fall of Delta Green, the gumshoe. And you played, didn't you? Because I had to cancel the original slot, and I managed to get you to play. And I played a scenario which is very Beatles associated. See how I managed to do that?
You managed to shoehorn it in here, haven't you?
Yeah, I managed to get the Beatles back in. And it's part of the unit campaign. So Keha of this parish has been getting together a group of games masters to play unit from Doctor Who style games, different games masters playing different scenarios with different systems, but all based around the unit. And so my scenario, and it's going to be a 3-parter. I'm going to do the second part.
With the same group?
I might do it with the same group. I'm going to just put it out there and see if they want to do it.
Yeah, I'll do it. Go on.
I'll
do it.
You do it.
Persuaded them.
And it's this idea that John Lennon was born during the time when there were shelling of Liverpool.
Yeah.
And that he somehow released something that affected him. And when he went to America, he was signed up as a CIA agent, and that's it, because he had these supernatural powers, which they managed to suppress when he was in America and keep under wraps, because they saw him as sort of a subversive unit. If they fell in the hands of the Soviets back in the USSR, you don't know where you are, boy. Weaponising. Yeah. They thought they'd suppressed it, but he went to India, didn't he? He went to India, did all that transcendental stuff, and he's reawakened. So he's dangerous.
Yeah.
He's out there, dangerous, affecting the youth against...
This is your scenario, it's not something you really think. We get enthusing to the point where, do you think this? Yeah.
So my three scenarios are loosely around that. I mean, it's on the edges, isn't it? I mean...
Yeah. I enjoyed the scenario. I think the slightly disappointing element was that you messaged me prior to the scenario and said, and you made a typo, that one of the characters was Liz Shaw working for you. Liz Shaw, who is John Pertwee's assistant in Doctor Who, isn't she?
Yeah.
But you made a typo and said, Liz Smith is available. I expect you to go for that character because you're a Doctor Who fan. And I thought... No, you didn't say Doctor Who, you just said Liz Smith is available. I expect you to go for that character. And I thought the actress Liz Smith who played the grandma in the Royal Family. And I thought, what's she doing in it?
Yeah.
What? And I realised you meant Liz Shaw, didn't you?
Yeah.
But you put Liz Smith.
I did.
I was geared up to play a grandma from the Royal Family.
Yeah.
Instead I had to play Doctor Who companion.
Grandma, she's a vegetarian. Oh, I am sorry, love.
I had all my lines practiced and everything. I thought it'd be the best bit of role playing you've ever seen. Oh, it's not Grandma from the Royal Family.
Yeah.
Oh, all right, never mind.
So there we go. That's my playing experience with those. I was the GM, but I really enjoyed that group of players. I thought they brought a lot to it.
I've had a lot of fun playing games this year, as I always do. I'm going to put forward as my nominee for this award.
Yeah.
Steve Rumney.
Steve Rumney,
who ran Slipstream for us. Yeah. And we've enjoyed Slipstream, we've enjoyed Necessary Evil that Mark's been running. But of course we've not finished Necessary Evil yet. That's still ongoing, isn't it? Yeah. But as we said earlier, we finished Slipstream, didn't we? And that was an amazing experience because it was a long campaign, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and
it was.
We've played big stuff, but it was every other Wednesday for... Was it about 3
years? 3
years, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I played a Cyclops, didn't I? We all played it. It was interesting because it's like Slipstream. It's Savage Worlds, and it's like a Flash Gordon style universe, isn't it? And when we finished that, I found it strange. I've had a drink, but
don't get emotional.
I did find it strangely emotional because I thought, wow, I've played a character for a long time. Over every other Wednesday for 3 years with a few breaks in summer, but not much of a break. I played a character and built that character up over that time. And we've all built our characters up. That is one of the beauties of role-playing, isn't it? That's long-term campaign.
Getting with the character.
Get in with the characters, know each other's characters, develop the characters, get advancements, become better and better, then have a final showdown with Queen Anastasia. And just... It was a great experience, you know.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's that peculiar thing about a regular game with a regular group. I suppose it's the opposite of what you're saying. That it becomes something that you do.
Yeah.
Wednesday group is something that I do. That's what I do. And it keeps ticking over and it keeps going. But when we finished that campaign, I did think to myself, wow, that's an amazing thing. 3-year campaign.
Yeah.
We've not scrimped on it. We've not cut any bits out. We've not fast forwarded. We've done it by the book, all the way through, and played characters right from the beginning.
Joint experiences that we share.
Yeah, joint experiences, and also a bit of something you've alluded to in previous podcasts, the system mastery thing of really getting into the setting and getting into the characters, but also getting into the game system, knowing how your character works, knowing what you can do, know what you can do, know what you can't do, working as a team, knowing who can do what and how they're going to do it. All those kind of things, brilliant.
Yeah.
So as a player, I nominate him for the award because as a player, that was a great long-term experience.
Well, Steve's going to get it then, isn't he?
Definitely.
Steve's won it. He can put it with his cup of sobriety, which he won when I did a roll on the virtual table. So there you go. Okay, so what's up next? We've got the Sharon Osbourne Award, the game that looks new, but it's actually quite old. So what are you going to go for?
My nomination will be Traveller.
Yeah, okay.
Because this year I kind of rediscovered Traveller. We started Pirates and Drenax back end of this year, and I've run a few one-shot, I ran a few con games. So it sort of started, I suppose, the year before. I ran a bit at GROGGIES, but this year has been a year of Traveller. And what's really strange about it is the last time I ran Traveller, you ran Traveller Adventure a few years ago, but the last time I ran Traveller, probably about 1985, 1986. And of course, it has been documented in this podcast. Kind of fell out with it a bit.
Yeah.
Thought it was rubbish. And now I've kind of come back to it. And I do think it was brilliant.
Yeah.
Once you get your head around the fact, it's a relatively straightforward game with lots of mini-games attached to it, which I think back in the day I didn't quite appreciate. But once somebody points out that a lot of the rules are mini-games, so building spaceships in Highguard is a mini-game, you can ignore it. Building vehicles, you can ignore it. Character creation is a mini-game. But once you've done it, you don't do it again, do you? So you need a new character. No. And also that thing that it's like a toolbox to do lots of different, although it has its own setting, you can do lots of different science fiction things with it.
Maybe playing Savage World so much has kind of got your head readjusted to deal with it.
Yeah, it could be that. Yeah, I think there are parallels between Traveller and Savage Worlds. Not in terms of the system, but in terms of that kind of outlook.
The approach,
It is a toolbox game, and I never appreciated that when I was younger.
I think perhaps we'll come back next year and look at Traveller in a bit more detail again.
Yeah.
I mean, we've covered it quite a bit.
We have covered it quite a bit, yeah.
But there's still bits of...
Yeah, I suppose we just started Pirates and Drenax,
yeah.
Next year we'll have played a lot more of it. So.
Yeah, and I've enjoyed playing. I've enjoyed that, and we'll perhaps talk a bit more detail about this in the future, but how the character creation system created a relationship between mine and Jonathan's character.
Yeah.
Which, normally you would just leave that behind, wouldn't you, once you've done your backstory?
Yeah.
But for some reason, and I think it's partly because of the way we're playing it, the actual background that we have is repeating itself in play. So I'm creating trouble for...
And he has to try and sort it out.
He has to try and sort it out. I'm the book smart, and he's the street smart psionic, isn't he? And it's
so you instigated a duel with an Aslan last time, and he had to fight it.
Yes. Just because I'm a smart ass. Yeah. My character,
and so's your character. Anyway,
Right. Okay. Well, I think my nomination is going to be RuneQuest Glorantha.
Oh yeah. Right?
So it's bittersweet, this though. It's bittersweet because we talked earlier about Monday being a casualty of just not being able to fit it in and too much going on outside of my gaming life. However, we did start to get a bit of purchase on having a campaign where you were playing High Llama nomads on a migration path across packs, and I did it as a bit of a monster of the week type approach, and not only just to test RuneQuest Glorantha, but also to rediscover what I loved about Glorantha back in the day, particularly when the denizens of Prax and some of the monsters in there, and having plenty of action focus was like a fight every week, wasn't there? And, so I really enjoyed that. So I'm going to put RuneQuest, and again, I think we do another podcast on RuneQuest at some point. How did you find it?
I enjoyed it. I thought though it was.
There's a bit of reservation here. You're not springing forward.
I enjoyed it. I think the way you ran the scenario and the group were great, because I do think there is that problem these days with Galantha of too much background.
Lower equals
snower.
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, I'm going around to that view. But I think the way you ran it was good, because did feel like old RuneQuest of old, in that you were off in Prax fighting a few monsters and clearing out a nest of brews and all that kind of thing, where that is what you want from RuneQuest. It certainly wasn't herding cows, and it wasn't masket weaving, and it wasn't Israeli and hairdos. None of that, was it?
No.
Which was good. It was good.
Well, there was a little bit of cultural interaction.
I never asked what year the scenario was set in. What year was it set in?
Well, I think I did do a bit of
what? Culture with the Morrican. We slaughtered them, killed them.
I don't know, but you
killed them and
you had the option not to.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because they had a few of our tribes people as prisoners. We just killed them on account.
Yeah, but then there was there was repercussions when you got.
There was repercussions, but
yeah.
I think we were on the verge of killing the repercussions as well, weren't we? Anyway,
yeah. Okay.
So I did enjoy that. I suppose it was. I think what surprised me about RuneQuest. We have played it before, but I suppose not played it again. Coming back to the theme of the year, a little mini campaign. We've played it, but we've played it almost as one shots, haven't we?
Yeah.
Whereas this time we played it over a number of sessions. Is that it is remarkably old school. It is, although you've got that passions and the runes thing. They don't really lift. I don't think they really lift it too far away from its origins. Actually, in terms of its a system of. Whereas if you look at Traveller is essentially the same system, but they have added. I mean, if you get a Traveller companion, there's like luck. I'm using the luck rule in Traveller.
Thank goodness.
Thank God. Yeah, I'm using the luck rule. So they've changed. Traveller's still essentially that game, but they have added bits on to make it feel a bit more modern. Whereas Shimmering Quest is so deceptive, really, wasn't it? That it felt modern when you looked at the carriage seat, but in play, it did feel like old RuneQuest.
Does it not therefore qualify?
Maybe it does
to win this award again. I think it's won it before.
Has he won it before?
It does win it before, I think.
Go on then.
So, RuneQuest Galantha.
He was slightly reluctant, so I'll allow it.
Sharon Osbourne, award winner. Okay, so the next award is New Kid on the Top, the tabletop.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your nomination for this?
My nomination is, and it's not a new. You've got to tell me.
New for us, isn't it?
New for us. This is new for us, isn't it? Because we don't limit ourselves to games that have just been produced this year. That'd be silly. It has to be Dungeon Crawl Classics.
Yeah.
This year was my discovery of Dungeon Crawl Classics.
Yeah, so previously I've had the view that every time people mention Dungeon Crawl Classics, I can just hear white noise and I want to shrug instantly.
Yeah, funnel.
So you're
saying the word funnel is like a way of. It's like a hypnotist. If you say funnel, he falls asleep.
Yeah. So I think this is part of your contrarian instinct to think, well, I'm going to pick that off the shelf and I'm going to.
Well, what happened was it was when we went to Expo. Expo is at fault because we booked our tickets to Expo, we do, and I looked at the games on offer. And I think I said to you, I was slightly disappointed. I think, in a way, it's a bit premature. I think more games came online later. But when I initially went on, I was slightly disappointed at the choice of games. There wasn't that much. You know, a couple of good games clashed with mine. So you think, all right, well, I'm winning, I can't play. Neil was running something. I thought, right, that sounds good. I'll sign up to Neil's game. And then I was a bit of a loss what else to play. So I thought, right, okay, there's Dungeon Crawl Classics game being run. I'm going to bite the bullet I'm going to play Dungeon Crawl Classics, see what all the fuss is about, see why people think it's great. Yeah. It's like a cult, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think you told the story, didn't you? You know, extra of UK Games Expo, and you blew up the table and killed half the players or something.
Yeah. But I booked on game, and then for my birthday I thought, Mrs. Blythe said, what do you want? I said, get me that Dungeon Crawl Classics rulebook then. Just get me the rulebook. I'll read the rules, because I'm going playing at Expo, so best to know what I'm doing. And played it at Expo, and I just thought it was such good fun. I can see why people have joined that cult.
Yeah.
Because it is such a lot of fun. On the one hand, it's like D&D. So it's in the one hand, it's old school D&D. But what it does is it steals from lots of other games. So it has critical tables, fumble tables. You roll on tables for spell effects. You've got a luck thing, you've got a luck mechanic. You've got all different things that it's kind of robbed, I think. Probably unashamedly robbed from other games. What it feels like when you read it is it feels like old school D&D. That somebody, and this may be what's happened, I suppose, in its very origins, has house ruled it into this slightly different game that's a bit more fun. And they've ironed out some of the things that are irritating about D&D in quite a good way. So, dare I say it, even clerics are fun in Dungeon Crawl Classics.
Wow.
Shocking, but they are.
So you could. Does it have a mum friend table?
I would say Dungeon Crawl Classics is not mum friendly at all. It's quite the opposite. It's quite brutal, quite savage, and very bloody. And also, it's very Vancian and very more Cockian in the way it approaches things like alignment. So, for example, it has lawful, chaotic, neutral alignments, but it makes the point: lawful people can be bad, chaotic people can be good. It doesn't have good and evil in it as such.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, like Moorcock, the law, chaos, agents of law, agents of chaos. It's got a lot of that kind of thing going on. And I have to say, I really enjoyed playing at Expo, and I've played it with in my charity work, my friend and his son. They really enjoyed it, and I've even put you through a funnel, haven't I?
You put me through the funnel.
You've been through the funnel. You managed to stay awake. Well done.
Yeah, and you know what? It was good. I mean, this is a nostalgia-based podcast, isn't it? I mean, that's our bread and butter. And, we've got Mariah Carey playing behind us. And, Christmas time.
Not in person.
Yeah.
Just recording. If it were in person, we wouldn't be able to concentrate, would we? No, it's rubbish.
So we
Hey, Mariah. Just, can you keep it down a bit? We're recording the podcast. She'd be out. She's a diva. She'd be out if you said that.
Yeah,
storm out of the pub.
Yeah, taking her red M&Ms with her.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I was going to say was, since the pandemic, we've not really got back into the groove of playing with Eddie once a month and face-to-face game, and a couple of reasons for that, and one of which is that he's not had a table for
there is a table issue.
A table issue, but that has now been resolved. And this month, as you say, we played again. We played Dungeon Crawl Classics face to face with Eddie, and there was a moment when you stood up and you were drawing a map of the dungeon. We were tied up and outside the dungeon.
Yeah,
and I'm not. The hairs on the back of my neck rose because it was just like being back when we were kids. And you were doing that thing where you go when you're concentrating. But you do a skippy noise when when you're doing a map, you go.
Okay.
And you do a bit of a wavy line. I thought, God, this takes me back. So I was instantly taken with it. But the other thing about the funnel is that it's amazing. It's amazing how that functions and creates characters on the fly.
Yeah, your characters kind of emerge from it, don't they? So you do end up with the cleric, the woman, one of your characters. You naturally, at the end of it, you thought she survived. She's naturally going to be the cleric, whereas one's a fighter and one's the magic.
Well, one got knighted, didn't he? So instantly he's a fighter.
He's a fighter. Yeah, that's what he's going to be. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And Sunuk, the tax collector.
Son at the tax collector. So I tried my best to kill him, but he survived. How annoying. But and I think what it does quite cleverly, you see, is it gives you an old school feels with some new school rules.
Yeah.
So what it does quite cleverly is it does have some new school things in there, swishing around in the system, but it does manage to still create that sense of old school gaming without it feeling like like when you as we have done for this podcast, sometimes you play an old school game and you sit there and think, God, this is unsophisticated or overly complicated or whatever, and that somehow takes that nostalgia out of it, because you get a bit irritated with it, don't you? You think, actually it's a bit annoying, but Dungeon Crawl Classics manages to just get the right balance of it's of an old school feel to it, but there are enough new school things in it to keep you interested and keep it moving in an interesting way, but at the same time not making it feel like it's too new school. You see what I mean? And also the good thing about it as well, just from and I think this year, and we said this a bit last year, but maybe it's a bit more acute this year. The world's kind of woken up. We went into COVID lockdown with lots and lots of time on our hands for gaming and also preparing games. And I think this year I've noticed time's been at a bit of a premium.
Yeah.
So what Dungeon Crawl Classics does, they produce lots and lots and lots of adventures that you can buy on drive-thru for a £5 and go, this is actually quite a good little adventure. You can modify it as you see fit. You can play around with it, but the basis of it is quite good. You know? So that one we ran, the Well of Brass, I think you said at the time, it has a bit of a story to it. It's kind of quite inventive and engaging, and you think, actually, it's quite good value for money. It saves me a bit of time, we're having fun with it, which is what you want. Whereas some games just have big campaigns, don't they?
Yeah.
But Dungeon Crawl Classic they do sell these kind of almost like old school D&D modules. Yeah. But again, they're a bit more sophisticated, there's a little bit more to them. They have a new school sensibility, and they're a bit clever, a lot of them, I think. So my nomination, as you can probably tell, is Dungeon Crawl Classics.
Dungeon Crawl Classics, and I think we'll play a lot more of that next year, won't we? Definitely, and because it's just good to be back playing with Eddie, and it's a perfect game for us to play together and have fun with. My nomination for New Kids on the top of the paper.
New Kid on the table. We have this problem every year, don't we? New Kid on the table.
The tabletop. It's a new game, new tools game.
New Kid on the table. New Kid on the table, tabletop.
Yeah.
That's it, isn't it?
I've not played many new games this year, and I think it comes back to that thing where we've played fewer games this year. And I suppose my nomination is a bit of a cheat, because it's another Savage Worlds iteration, which is Wise Guys. This year has been the year of gangsters. It's been the year of Savage Worlds.
Yeah.
Put the two together, you've got Wise Guys, and if you've listened to our podcast about it, you'll know that it's a good game. However, mixing it with the new edition and some of the innovations that it's got, like the heist mechanic, you can actually turn it into a story game, which is what I did. We're using the quick encounters, and you can cover a lot of ground using it without having a granular fight, and using those quick encounters.
Quick encounters is interesting in Savage Worlds, because it's almost like a game within a game, isn't
it?
That you could run a game just with quick encounters, as quick encounters as the game system, really.
Yeah. So what I did is, on the Roll20, is set up a casino table with chips and cards, and it just had it was set in Las Vegas. It had a Wise Guys feel. There was no play mats, no tokens. It was just using things in that way. So, Wise Guys is my thing. It's really good, so I enjoyed that. It's going to be DCC, because I think we're going to play a lot more of that.
It's got to be, isn't it? We've finally been converted to the cult of DCC.
Yeah. Give me more funnel.
give you more fun. Yeah.
The next one is the Listeners Award, and this is the listeners who tell us which of the podcasts, we call it a poll like that, listeners poll, a poll winners party, like the Annie Smash Hits. Do you remember them?
Smash Hits, yeah.
Smash Hits poll winning party, which is the grog pod that they have appreciated the most.
Okay.
We've had nearly 90 votes. And what do you think is going to be the winning one?
I don't know. You're not asking me this. What do I know? The one with the least, where we're in it the least.
Yeah.
I should probably put my money on that one.
Well, it's funny you should say that. It is probably.
It's the one where we're in the least.
Yeah, it is probably one. But it's the Scarred for Life episode, which kind of blew the rest of them out of the water. It was 40% of the vote went to Scarred for Life, which is odd because it wasn't necessarily about gaming, was
it? Yeah, true. Tells you something. That.
Yeah.
You should stop talking about gaming. Go back onto your Beatles thing. Let's talk about
let's
that.
Let's talk about
people
Beatles,
want. They just want nostalgia, not necessarily gaming nostalgia.
Yeah. So there you go. Well done to Stephen Brotherston, who is our guest on that episode. And that's Scarred for Life. And while we're on, listeners, it's time for the Groggie of the Year. So who is the member of the Grog Squad who deserves an award?
Outstanding contribution, lifetime achievement, etc.
Etc. So I've got my nomination. I've already awarded it.
You've already awarded it?
I've taken an executive decision.
Oh. I'm going to give that megalomaniac award back to you. Sorry, Steve, you haven't got it. He's got it again because he's a megalomaniac. Who are you giving it to?
Well, as you know, we've both had a bit of a difficult year with one thing and another, dealing with family bereavement. And autumn was particularly tough for me this year. But a very kind gesture was given by Doc Cowie. The Dice Men book has been released by Ian Livingston and Steve Jackson, and tells the story of the origins of Games Workshop. I think we need to... don't open your Christmas present yet, but I don't want to give anything away.
No.
But perhaps we'll talk in a bit more detail.
Okay.
All right, yeah.
I wonder what this is.
Yes.
I wonder what this book-shaped parcel is.
But so that was released, and it was crowdfunding. At the highest level, you could have a dinner with, you know this, don't you? With Ian Livingston.
I know it, they don't. You just keep talking. It's artifice, all this.
Yeah.
You've got to tell them what's going on. Don't. It won't work if we just talked about what we already know. It won't make it be incoherent.
Yeah.
Carry on.
So, it was a launch party with Ian Livingston and Steve Jackson. I've written about it on the blog, but it was a lovely thing to do, and it was just so well timed. I needed to get away for a day and just have some time, and so it was really, really good. So, read the blog, so well done, and thank you very much to Doc Cowie.
Yeah, Doc Cowie's one. Oh, God, no competition there. Stop being so generous, Doc Cowie.
I should say that, to get Groggie of the Year, you don't have to give me gifts. I mean, it's not...
but it helps.
Yeah.
Clearly helps.
Michelle Moan situation. The Moan
Just
maneuver.
give gifts to his private equity firm or whatever she had. I don't know.
Bras. He gave bras.
She made her money in bras, didn't she? Well, she hid it there. Mind you, it'd be a big bra, wouldn't it? Giving all the money she's made. Anyway,
there we go. So as we went into this year, our promise was to visit the 90s. Our promise to our listeners was to have a year of looking at 90s games. And we haven't, have we? But we did also promise that we would do a Savage Worlds episode, which we did.
So
our balance sheet shows that we're halfway there. But I think it's been difficult to revisit the 90s because we've just not played that number of games. I think if we're doing it next year, we really need to reinstate the one-stop shop. Well, one-stop shop. It's been a long thing.
Yeah, reinstate that. I'm not setting up a contact centre for gamers. You've asked too much of me already. I'm not sitting on a phone with an headset on all day asking questions about gaming. How can I help you? It's the Grognard Files contact centre. How can I help you? I'm a little bit puzzled about it. Criticals and fumbles in RuneQuest. If you can clarify it, please.
We need to reinstate the one-stop shop.
Stop saying that.
We need to reinstate
focus, for God's sake.
We need to reinstate the one-shot club so that we've got the space to just explore some of those games from the 90s. I think it's difficult though. I think it's difficult because, I've tried looking at some of those games from the 90s. Like, for example, Delta Green. And I think we've got it lined up, haven't we, to do a Delta Green campaign for a short period of time with the Sunday group. But it's weird because it's a different relationship, isn't it, with those games? You feel like it's somebody else's nostalgia that you tap into.
It's odd, isn't it? And they do sit in a different place. I mean, I played Cult at Albert. And although it's the new edition of Cult, obviously it still has the same flavour. And I enjoyed it a lot. And I've got the rules to Cult, but I do look at it and think, well, I'm not sure whether I'd run it. I don't know whether it's something I could run. Yeah, it's a strange landscape, isn't it, the 90s games? It's a strange kind of place to go.
If you recall Stephen Brudston in Scarred for Life episode, he said that they would never do a book about the 90s. And part of that, he gave various reasons, but I think one of them is that he's very knowing, isn't it, the 90s, and it's I find where there's kind of warmth and humour and a sense of absurd and people fumbling around
or naivety
in the 80s.
Yes, that's true. Actually,
it's kind of a level.
There is a naivety to 80s games because it's the beginnings of role-playing. So you're right, there is an absurdity to it and silliness and daftness where you think, what's going on here? Whereas the 90s, those 90s games, and I might be wrong here because I've not explored it in enough detail, but they are more knowing, aren't they?
Yeah,
there is more knowing. They're more sophisticated in a way, and more knowing. And they push things a bit more.
Yeah.
So Cult does that. It's notorious, obviously, being a horror game, but it pushes it a bit more. So it's almost like what it's doing is you've got Call of Cthulhu in the 80s, and of course you've got Call of Cthulhu in the 90s, of course, right? But it takes that horror thing and pushes it a bit more, farther, in a more sophisticated and knowing way.
So I think we should retain that. Resolution. Take it forward to the next year, do you think?
To explore the 90s.
Explore the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. You look a bit doubtful, and when you're a bit doubtful, you're preparing a torpedo.
It's uncharted. I'm not preparing a torpedo. It's uncharted territory, isn't it, for us, really?
Yeah.
Because there's a weird gap because we started playing back in the noughties, didn't we? And of course, when we started playing back, we played advanced D&D. So we went back to the original game, and then it gradually got into newer games. But the 90s is weird. It's weird territory, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where we don't really know what's what.
No, we don't know what's what.
I mean, some would argue we don't know what's what.
Anyway.
Which is a fair assessment.
And maybe that's what we need. We need some help just to navigate through those 90s games.
Yeah.
And to also start from a standing position, aren't we?
Yeah.
Hey, Barry.
The good friends of Jackson Elias are Scott Dorward, Paul Fricker and Matthew Sanderson.
And together they talk on their podcast about Call of Cthulhu, horror films and weird fiction, as well as other horror role-playing games.
Check it out wherever you get your podcasts or head over to blasphemoustomes.com.
Did you hear that at the end of the recording? Hello, Barry. Hello, Gary. It wasn't them. It's an abrupt ending due to a child coming into the snug to enjoy a Christmas tree. Oh, the spirit of Christmas. Bloody kids in pubs. We had our wigs on and everything. It's that time of year when I do my roundup of podcasts of note. There's the usual ones that have been on my roll call and have appeared on some of my favourites in 2022, including All Anthrex's Gaming Vexes, Frankenstein's RPG, The Smart Party, and a turn as Lord Rabbit in The Tale of the Manticore. Spoiler alert, he's coming back soon. There have been some new podcasts added to my monthly roster. Some of them are gaming related, others are part of a wider hinterland. At the beginning of the year, I was completely absorbed by Baz from the Smart Party's side project, RuneQuest Year Zero. He took apart the starter set for RuneQuest, which was released last year, and he tried to assess who was it aimed at. Was it a good introduction to the setting of Glantha for those people who'd not experienced it previously? And did the mechanics work? It caught the imagination of listeners too, as they contributed to these assessments. It's a really lively and interesting short series that will forever remind me of walking miles through the Lake District in the pitch darkness, trying to find somewhere that sold a bottle of milk. I only had Baz to keep me company. I was climbing over fences into barren fields, while he was working out the relevance of a grain store in Johnstown. Baz's podcast really inspired me to actually dust off the RuneQuest Glantha books that I've been building up on my shelves and play the game. As I mentioned in the podcast, my ambitions were curtailed by other demands on my time, but I really enjoyed the sessions where the Lost Axe High Llama tribe explored a migration path through Prax. I was also inspired by Ludo and George's podcast, The God Learners. Episode 9 featured David Scott doing a deep dive into Nomad Gods, the board game that, along with White Bear Red Moon, preceded RuneQuest as games set in Glantha. David speaks in a knowledgeable but accessible way about Prax and some of the opportunities for adventure using the various tribes in the region. You'll notice that Jingle Bells was played on the ukulele in this podcast by Paul Mitchener. He also provides the titles to Titterpigs, a podcast launched this year by Keith and Scott. If you attend the weekly Mitchester's Arms, the virtual pub open on Fridays and hosted by Paul, you'll recognise Keith and Scott as their regular attendees. Keith writes reviews on the Rolling Boxcars blog, and Scott hosts a YouTube channel which consists mainly of unboxing games. The podcast is opinionated, well-informed and fluent. Imagine daytime radio, but with games. They do some industry and new releases chat, which isn't always for me, but they also cover specific topics in a lively and an engaging manner. My favourite so far has been episode 17 about alternate histories. It features an interview with Ken Hite, which is incredibly revealing and insightful, given that he's already got a weekly podcast himself. Thanks to their focused questioning, they managed to get some additional insights that I've not heard previously. Titterpig's RPG podcast, and it fills a hole left by the missed Gaming and BS, which finished earlier this year. I look forward to seeing how it develops and grows. As I mentioned in the podcast, I've been reading lots of Beatles books, so I'll heartily recommend Beatles books by Joe Wisby, who manages to get some great authors as he takes a tour through his own 400 books on the Beatles. I recommend episode 49 with J. Burgeon, a lawyer who represented Lennon during his Lost Weekend period at a time when the mob were indirectly insisting that he produced an album for them. Great stuff. Finally, it's another non-gaming podcast, but it is the highlight of the new podcast that I listen to, and it's the Video Archives podcast with Quentin Tarantino, Roger Avery, and his daughter, Gala Avery. Tarantino and Avery famously worked together in the Video Archive store in LA back in the 80s before they became filmmakers. This is them going back and watching the VHS films from the store library, which is now owned by Tarantino. It's not for everyone. There's over-talking, shouting, and trash talk that can make your toes curl, but I enjoy the passion, the knowledge, and the filmmaker's eye as they discuss the great and good from the VHS exploitation scene. I recommend that you start from the beginning with Dark Star and Cocaine Cowboys. There's a certain pleasure watching along with them if you can. That's it. 2022 in gaming all wrapped up for the Armchair Adventurers. Thanks for listening to us. Thanks for passing it on if you can. And if you like podcasts, please do pass it on and let the creators know that you do like them. It makes a world of difference. We have another 12 months of podcasts planned to entertain and inform us, and I hope that you'll be around to listen to them and be entertained by our continuing thaw from the deep freeze. Thanks to everyone who's supported us via tips to the Patreon. We have plans in 2023 to make sure that those tips work harder than ever. Your hand in the pocket help is really appreciated to help to pay for stuff, keep us motivated, and to devise new schemes. I'll do some individual shout-outs to new people in the next pod, which will be coming very soon. It's a mashup. Until then, adios, amigos.
He's a strangler who's escaped from an asylum for the criminally insane. He roams the countryside at night searching for fresh victims, laughing maniacally as he kills them.
He is a cursed immortal, existing on violence, fear, dread.
It's in the trees. It's coming. The demon!